thank the government whip. We now call on the opposition group.
Good day once again. Before I get to my arguments, I have one point of rebuttal I'd like to pose to the government whip. He mentioned the only way to save people is through force. That was his last phrase. He said the only way to save people is through force. But don't you think platforms such as formal negotiations can be used to save people without force? And in terms of this force you're talking about, in terms of the emotion, you are basically referring to military force. So in other words, you are saying military force is the only option or alternative that we can use when it comes to saving people. And the people you're referring to in this case are journalists. Journalists. Why are they so important? It's not like you're referring to civil people of a certain country. So when you say my problem there is saving people through force, journalists to me are not people. They are not people. They are vultures who thank you. They are vultures who use news just for their own benefit. So we should not save these people, regardless of whether it's through force or anything. Okay, no, thank you. I have 4 points that I would like to raise today. The first point is using your idea of using military forces to save journalists. Okay, there's no problem with saving through good journalists, but the problem with military forces is military forces tend to lead to a form of military dictatorship. If you currently look what's happening in Thailand right now, there's military dictatorship that's taking place there.
On a point, sir.
No, thank you. There's a shutdown of media. Hundreds of people have been banned from leaving Thailand. So, don't you think if we use military forces, this can arise, a form of military dictatorship can arise, and this will in the end have the potential of causing political unrest in the country where the journalist has been captured. And also, the government officials won't have any say because the government officials are not equipped with any machinery, so military forces would simply outsmart them.
On that point.
Yes, to take your point.
Okay, so you're saying that these people are not worth saving. So why are they then worth $1,000 or $1 million to be released?
Because there are certain illogical governments out there who think that those journalists deserve to reveal the truth. I don't know if that answers your point. Then the other point I would like to raise is taking a look at the journalists and their intentions when they go to war zones. Some don't even go there to report what's happening, like I mentioned before in my earlier case. Some go there to negotiate deals, illegal deals. If we take a look at Russia, while it was still known as the Soviet Union, it had an encounter with the United States of America. There was one journalist known as Karen Jacobs. In 1966, this journalist went to Russia. Since that time, Russia was facing economic turmoil and political unrest. So he went there to cover the story. So, but the question is, he didn't fulfill that role or task that he aimed to do. In the end, he negotiated deals with the Russian or Soviet Union government.
On a point, sir.
No, thank you. He negotiated deals with the Russian or the Soviet Union government in a plot to somehow cover up the mess that was happening there.
On a point, sir.
Do you think if that was happening, we should? And in the end, the deal went wrong. So and the Russians decided to capture him. So do you think we should rescue journalists who go to other countries just for taking part in corrupt dealings?
On a point, sir.
I'll take your point.
So, sir, how would you even know this if the journalist had been captured who was reporting that story?
Can you please repeat the question?
How would you even know what happened if a journalist did not report that story?
if the journalists hadn't reported that story, then it would have been good for the world not to know that story, because if the world didn't know that story, then the Soviet Union's mess or bad economic and political state wouldn't have been exposed, would have not been exposed. So it wasn't going to benefit us in any way. Third point that I have, using military forces is not something that you can do just like that. There are certain procedures that you have to follow. So I think using military forces, economic means also have to be used. So taking a look at Western nations currently, there are some who experience economic problems. So why should we use the government's money for a military force? We should help a journalist in a certain country. What about the citizens in there? Don't you think they'll complain and say, why should the military force get money to save that? What about us who are suffering? So I think from there, a civil war can arise in that certain country. And when a civil war arises, I repeat this again, and a simple attempt just to rescue one journalist will turn into a whole lot of problems. So from these points that we have mentioned, we, as a closing government bench, believe that utilizing military forces from Western nations as a means to rescue journalists who have been captured by the enemy is an illogical and unintelligent move, since it only causes more harm than good. And we don't believe in save people through force. What people? These are vultures. With all that, thank you.